Putting GTA 6 aside, 2025 appears to be shaping up as a great year for new game releases. Like every year, I want to go over a few games players, myself, and maybe you are excited for. I'm not a psychic and have been wrong many times before, but this list will primarily focus on games with either a set release date or that look far enough along I'm fairly confident they'll be out this year, so essentially more first half focused. Certain games I've already mentioned on other lists like Avowed will be left off, as will many games that I have seen little to nothing on like GTA 6, Marvel 1943, Death Stranding 2, and Fable. I'm not saying any of those games won't come out this year, for sure, but none of them look far enough along to give me enough confidence that they'll be out at least during the first half. And that's why I'm making a second half of the year list video as well. So keep an eye out for that, but here are 10 potentially awesome games to look forward to in 2025. Starting off with one of the smaller titles on this list, South of Midnight looks quite promising from what we've seen. There are a few things about this title that might help it stand out from the crowd. Immediately, the animation and art direction pops out as unique. You don't really see many games go for this type of stop motion approach. It might even take some time to get used to if you're one of those people hypersensitive to frame rates. In that same vein, there are also a few games that take place in the Deep South, and so there's an extra freshness around this particular setting. From an outsider's perspective, the characters seem to be authentic to the region, and so I'm sure plenty of players of the area will be happy, as well as it overall contributing to the immersion itself. Beyond just the Deep South, there is clearly a fantastical element that seems to take inspiration from local myths and legends. Structurally and gameplay-wise, it reminds me a lot of Kena Bridge of Spirits, even though of course that game has plenty of its own inspirations. But from what we've seen, similar to Kena, South of Midnight seems to involve its setting as a more intimate character to the story beyond just set dressing, which has me excited. South of Midnight is expected to release on April 8th. Out of all the games on today's list, Pokemon Legends ZA is the one we know the least about. At this point, all we have is the name and a cryptic trailer. It would appear that the Kalos region from X and Y is the subject of this Legends tale, so basically the Pokemon version of France, but what I'm curious about is when does the game take place? Legends Arceus went all the way back to feudal Japan, but this teaser trailer from ZA seems pretty modern, so who knows? As fun as the core gameplay loop of Legends Arceus was, I really hope ZA is a bit more polished both visually and design-wise. The Pokemon IP is just too big to excuse poor quality, yet with that said, these games keep selling like hotcakes, and so higher-ups aren't exactly motivated to change the formula. The one thing that does have me at least somewhat optimistic is the lengthier turnaround time that hopefully has been more than enough time for Game Freak to put out a better overall product. Knowing Nintendo, I wouldn't be surprised if Pokemon Legends ZA had no immediate plans for a native Switch 2 version, but let's just hope for the best. If you've followed my channel for a while, you know I am a sucker for narrative-driven choice games that center around a mystery. So needless to say, I am keeping my eye on Lost Records Bloom and Rage. Made by the developers behind the first two Life is Strange games, Dontnod seems to be just the right studio for the job. Lost Records appears to take place today, where a group of former friends must recount and piece together events that took place in 1995. A curious mystery with some seemingly supernatural and/or sci-fi elements. Was there murder, time travel, aliens, all the above? I'm not sure, but I'm excited to find out. I'm digging the choice to reflect back on the 1990s. The 90s are the new nostalgic decade everyone looks back on with fond memories. Even though the style during this decade was horrible, the feeling of genuine friendship and coming of age is perfect for a game like this. If you are also interested in Lost Records Bloom and Rage, mark down February 18th and April 15th as the release dates for tapes 1 and 2. Personally, I'm probably going to wait to play tape 1 until right before 2 comes out, because who wants to wait 2 whole months? One of the more unique titles expected to come out this year is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. There's a lot that stands out here. The story appears to center around taking out and/or confronting the Paintress, a seemingly wicked and powerful godlike character. Due to some most likely melancholy backstory with a loved one, she erases people from existence once they hit a certain age, with 34 being the not so lucky number during this game's series of events. I guess at least prostate and other cancer rates would go down quite a bit. Not that you'd have that many doctors done with med school to even help anyways with that kind of an age. But Expedition 33 takes place in what I'm assuming is a Victorian era France with a ton of surreal fantasy. A lot of games are loving France this year, it looks like. The developers are definitely nailing the vibe of a French Victorian painting. Some of these settings shown off in the trailers get pretty out there. Combat is also just as interesting with a blend of real-time and turn-based. It's hard to tell for sure how this will play, but I love the ambition here. I could either see it taking the best of both approaches, resulting in something amazing and special, or maybe a compromise middle ground. Either way, we won't have to wait long, with April 24th being the expected release date. Split Fiction has a lot of players excited because It Takes Two was easily one of the best games of 2021, and for many their pleasant surprise of the year. It started off with a silly cast of characters, tackling a serious yet relatable topic for many. Going through with a friend, it became clear quickly that it wasn't just a cheap game with couch co-op, but rather a great game designed around co-op play. Like many, I had a blast with It Takes Two, and so naturally I'm excited to give Split Fiction a try. Another seemingly silly cast of characters thrown into an uncomfortable dynamic where they have to work to get out of the games that they're trapped in. Gameplay wise, I'm excited to play through the variety of settings from sci-fi to fantasy and everything in between. If Split Fiction is anything like It Takes Two, every course will be fully realized, with each game mechanic feeling strong enough to carry a whole game on its own. It's nice to see a studio find a unique lane, and there just isn't enough couch co-op games these days if you ask me. Also refreshing, we don't have to wait too long to get our hands on Split Fiction because it's expected to release on March 6th. Civilization 7 is easily one of the most anticipated games this year, and that's really saying something for seemingly how stacked this year is shaping up to be. Getting to write your own version of history is an understandably interesting concept for many. I'm sure there will be all sorts of fascinating and even funny dynamics for players to create. Previews have been quite positive, even with some changes to the formula, and so I would imagine most Civ fans are psyched. I've never gotten into the Civ series, but its basic premise seems like something I could get addicted to if I gave it enough time to sink its hooks into me. There's just something so satisfying about games that focus on rapid expansion and progression. Something in my lizard brain loves that kind of a gameplay loop, so let me know if you think I should give Civ 7 a try on February 11th. Doom: The Dark Ages looks epic, to say the least. For a game like this, Bethesda put out the perfect trailer to show off some of the mechanics and actual moment-to-moment gameplay. The over-the-top gory power fantasy shines best by showing and not telling the audience how the game actually plays. My relationship with Doom has been super casual throughout the years, and so this is probably the game that's had me the most excited. Obviously there is the over-the-top crazy action, but also I think the setting in particular appeals to me. For all we know, it's probably another variation of France. Dark medieval times mixed with some sci-fi action sounds like a fun and interesting setting. Throw in a mech and what more can you ask for? There's also a new chainsaw shield thing that reminded me of the Leviathan axe from God of War in all the best kinds of ways. Modern Doom seems to be one of those rare series that just never misses, and so it's even easier to get excited for the next entry. Doom: The Dark Ages is a prequel, and so if you've never played or gotten into the series, then this might be just the entry for you on May 15th. I'll be honest with you, I've never played a Monster Hunter game, but even I can see it's many players' most anticipated game this year. The loop of taking down all sorts of crazy monsters has always had me interested from afar, but I've just never given the series a go. I've always gotten adult Pokemon vibes, and so similarly there might be a core gameplay loop I could get into. I feel like this series always comes out around the time some other big games do that I usually end up playing instead. In this year's case, February is looking pretty packed with games like Kingdom Come, Avowed, Civ 7, and Lost Records. Depending on how it reviews, I may end up checking it out at some point this year. Are you a Monster Hunter fan, and if so, what makes this particular release so special? You can expect to play Monster Hunter Wilds on February 28th. The myth, the man, or 40-year spoiler, the woman, the legend, Samus is finally back in 3 dimensions with the return of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Talk about a game in development hell, but at least Nintendo and Retro Studios put their heads down and worked until they actually had something to show. And now Prime 4 looks to be exactly the game many fans have been waiting for. With the return of series like Ninja Gaiden, 2D Prince of Persia, and the DBZ Budokai Tenkaichi series, 2000s gaming is so back. Either that or nostalgia is always in style. The Metroid Prime series in particular is loved by many due to its gameplay-centric environmental storytelling and action-based problem-solving. Being one of the 2 series the Metroidvania genre is named after, Prime is a perfect translation into the 3D space from its 2D origins. Like any good Metroidvania, I'm excited to see what new tools Samus has at her disposal. I'm also curious to see how crazy did they go with the plot. Are we talking time travel or some actual cool implementation of multiverses, or are we just sticking to the basics? We don't have a release date yet, but I would imagine sometime during the second half of this year with both a Switch and maybe a Switch 2 version. Ghost of Yotei is easily one of my most anticipated games this year because, like Rockstar, I have a ton of confidence in Sucker Punch's ability to deliver an amazing game. Both studios tend to stick to their strengths, which allows for them to really flex their technical abilities. Ghost of Tsushima in a lot of ways felt like the first entry in a series with some of its growing pains, and so I'm excited to see what lessons have been learned. One area that was absolutely fantastic from the go was combat. Somewhat of a mix and match approach that takes elements from Arkham combat, Souls-likes, and even Ubisoft, but repackaged and polished into something special. Now add in several hundred years of new goodies to play with and I'm sold. Story-wise, I'm definitely going to be missing Jin. As I wrongly pointed out in my predictions wishlist video, I thought there was still plenty of story to be told, even though the original game felt complete by the end. We don't know much about this new protagonist, Atsu, or her exact motivations, but on the surface, a blood-filled revenge tale has me interested. Gotta love the let 'em come kind of energy she radiates in this initial trailer. There is no release date yet, but for this game, I feel fairly confident based on what we've seen. It's coming out sometime this year, perhaps fall or maybe even summer, depending on a few things like the nuke that is GTA 6. When Ghost of Yotei does come out later this year, I will be beyond hyped to play it. Which of these games currently expected to come out this year are you the most excited for? One thing that has me excited is there seems to be a lot of variety to look forward to. I think many fans of any genre can be happy with something this year. Even several games outside my normal wheelhouse has piqued my interest, so I'm looking forward to trying those games out as well. As I mentioned earlier, I will post a second half of the year list sometime around June or July, so I'm sure that will be flooded with Nintendo first party games and maybe GTA 6. But what does your most anticipated list look like? As always, I appreciate you for watching, and until next time, see ya!